Okay, so I've never used Claude AI, and I want to describe how shocking the difference is between the scientific or the generally accepted conventional wisdom about climate change. So let us ask Claude, which year is which year are we likely to hit 3C above pre-industrial temperatures with a tight range, and then explain your reasoning in 1 or 2 paragraphs. In 1 to 3 paragraphs, please. Okay, so we're seeing 2070 to 2090. Okay, let us presume a business as usual scenario. 2060 to 2075. Okay, so if I submit evidence, please evaluate this evidence. Okay. So here we go. We went from 2067.5 is the average date for business as usual, 2080 with some interventions, and we end up with under true business as usual, 2040, meaning immediate. Now, why is 3C so important? 3C is the temperature at which life basically collapses in the tropics, and that creates cascading effects and affects everything else. But 3C is sort of where the shit really hits the fan. So what do we have here? This document presents a much more alarming timeline than standard climate assessments, and here why their analysis differs. 1, carbon sink collapse, dry tropical soils losing 0.5. Now, a petagram is equivalent to a gigaton of carbon. So for people who aren't familiar, we're putting out about 30 gigatons, 30 billion tons of carbon a year. And traditionally, somewhere around half of that was being absorbed by nature. And the rest of it was mainly getting absorbed at heating our oceans and acidifying our oceans. And what we see here is that the land and ocean are no longer absorbing our garbage, our carbon. Ocean efficiency down 15%, dry tropical soils losing a half a gigaton per year. This means more of each ton of emission stays airborne, accelerating atmospheric carbon, and also gets heating the ocean, acidifying the ocean. Second, Greenland ice revised up 20%. We're losing the ice faster in Greenland. Now, why is this important? We'll get to that later. And then compound feedback activation. So this is where, what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas. So when there's for example, when you have a lot of burning, of forests that darkens the Arctic, which reduces the reflectivity of the Earth. The white turns black. It absorbs more heat. This is just a simple example of two systems interacting, reflectivity and fires. In this case, it's talking about permafrost, wildfires, soil respiration, Amazon dieback are all interacting with each other and reinforcing each other earlier than models predicted. This document is a very pessimistic interpretation of recent science. The author has synthesized recent papers but arrives at dramatically faster timelines in mainstream climate science. The IPCC AR6 in most climate science would place 3C under high emission scenarios. And then what does Claude say? This represents an extreme but not impossible scenario. The 2038-2040 range would require both continued high emissions and the author's interpretations of accelerating feedbacks being correct. Mainstream science would still point to 2060 to 2075 under BAU. So it's pushing back. So let's push back on Claude a little bit. What I wrote back to this Claude AI is go through all the tipping points and feedbacks in this paper and the second paper. If we act looking at a business as usual scenario and argue scientifically, not what the political consensus is, but what the physics tell us. So let's make sure that I have that uploaded here. So let's see what it says now. There's a lot of new information here. Okay, carbon sink collapse substantiated. Greenland ice loss revisited substantiated. Ocean stratification and heat lag substantiated. Permafrost thaw substantiated. Tropical forest carbon source flip partially substantiated. Where mainstream estimates may be conservative. Our AR6 central, 3C per doubling CO2. Hagen argues 4 to 4.5 more likely based on observed warming tracking, high-end scenarios, faster than modeled feedback activation, observation-based radiative forcing, showing Earth retaining more heat than expected, feedback interaction, cascade architecture. Models typically treat feedbacks independently, physical reality that compound and interact, ice loss, albedo change, more heat, more ice loss, soil heating, carbon release, atmospheric heating, more soil heating, forest stress, fire, carbon release, climate warming, more forest stress. The math, when feedbacks interact, warming acceleration follows exponential, not linear curves. Aerosol masking effect, current global dimming, half a C cooling from sulfate aerosols, coal retirement, aerosol decline, immediate warming spike of 1/10 of a degree C to 0.2. This is unavoidable physics. Removing air pollution temporarily increases warming. And in fact, I think we should not stop using these things because we need that zero point 0.1 and 0.2, but that's beside the point. The scientific case for 3C in a business as usual scenario, 2038 to 2044, the math, starting conditions, current warming, CO2, sinks absorbing, the projection with feedback acceleration, 2C between 2029 and 2033, 2.5 between 2034 and 2038, 3 by 2038 to 2044. Why this could be accurate from a physics perspective. Airborne fraction rising, more CO2 staying in atmosphere per ton emitted, heat accumulation, oceans storing 90% of trapped heat, but approaching saturation. So the natural systems are not able to absorb all of what is going on here. Methane spikes. So we're going to have a lot of methane released in the permafrost and the wetlands, which is going to add short-lived but powerful forcing. Forcing means heating. Vegetation feedback. Models underestimate speed of forest source transition. And forest source transition in this case means that forests are going to turn into other types of environments, such as prairie, savanna, we will lose our forests. Where uncertainty remains, AMOC timing, collapse could happen in a wide range, methane class rates. So there's a huge amount of methane locked up in the Arctic oceans that we don't know whether those are going to release or not. That's not really argued in this uh, science. Cloud feedbacks, we have a serious risk of losing a lot of our low-lying clouds from all of the things going on in our atmosphere right now, which will greatly heat the planet rapidly if we have a sort of cloud Armageddon. And then tipping cascades, interaction strength between multiple tipping points, hard to quantify. So critical assessment, where the physics clearly shows sinks are weakening faster, Greenland melting, ocean heat lag, permafrost thaw. Each feedback makes the next one more likely. What's more uncertain, exact timing of forest flipping to savanna, AMOC collapse timing, interaction strengths between feedbacks, human response speed could break some feedbacks. My scientific so what Claude says is that this is plausible, but represents the high end of physically possible outcomes. Arguments for supporting the faster timeline, sink decline is observationally confirmed and ahead of schedule. So the ability of the Earth to absorb our CO2 in both the vegetation and in the oceans is slowing, and it's able to absorb less of this. This is observationally confirmed. Feedback interactions are real, and we're not well modeled. I'm paraphrasing in the AR6. The AR6 is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC 6 Assessment Report 2021 to 2033. See if where we have this here. Okay, now I've seemed to have moved a bit here. What's more uncertain? Okay, forgive me. IPCC consensus 2060 to 2080 under high emissions. Hagen's argument most likely 3C. My scientific assessment, these three things are confirmed. Argument for slower, some renewables deployments occurring, negative emissions technology could scale faster than expected. So here, um, what we've actually found is that the more renewable energy we add, we don't slow fossil fuels, we just use more energy. That's unfortunately a problem that's going on. And of course, I want us to survive, so I'm not interested in creating an extra negative scenario. I'm interested in predicting what's actually going to happen. So we have some problems with this idea of renewable deployment, although it will be helpful, obviously, but right now we're just gobbling up all the energy we can get. Negative emissions technology could, now this is techno magic. Um, this, we can't bet our whole human future on technological interventions. And it's very dangerous to do that. And we will need them. We will need them to halt this and stabilize the earth. This is also not business as usual. Adaptation measures could prevent worst local feedbacks. Models have uncertainty ranges for good reason. So, so now it's moved its own timeline to 2045, whereas mine would have been at 2041. So, in the matter of 5 minutes, by just uploading analysis of all the latest climate papers, we have had Claude move from 2065 when all hell breaks loose planet wide and we can't really put the genie back in the bottle, earliest case. Now it's itself arguing 2045, which is 19 years from now. So this gives you an idea of how badly out of whack the entire system is about understanding what is going on, because AI is a representation of the political and scientific consensus. This is exactly the experience that I had with Grok and with other AIs. And the few climate people, climate scientists, environmental engineers that I've been able to talk to are more on the same page with me, but they haven't done this kind of comprehensive analysis. Um, but they are concerned this is happening much more rapidly than people think. So I want to make it clear what Claude's conclusion is. The physics supports significant concern that mainstream estimates may be 10 to 20 years too optimistic, but claiming certainty about 2038 to 2044 overstates our predictive precision. And I never made the argument that this is exactly when it'll arrive, but this is where the data took us to. That we're not as interested in predicting the exact year, although that would be interesting, as evaluating the risk. And there's a significant non-zero risk of that occurring. And what this shows here is the direction and magnitude of risk demand immediate emergency scale response. Okay, so now we are positing this question to Claude about how many people will we be able to feed and what quality diet will they have in business as usual. And it's predicting a drop in food of about 40 to 50%. And now Claude is getting pretty sharp here. Well-fed 600 to 800 million people, adequately fed 1.5 to 2 billion, chronically food insecure, acute starvation risk 3 to 4 billion people. So that is really interesting. This is not bad. This is not bad at all for a first pass. This is really, really good. I mean, it's terrible, but it's really accurate. And let's see how it compares. Where were we here? Document, Claude's take. And that was fast too. We'll call this V2. Let's, so for anyone bothering to stay with me this long, we're talking about 3 to 4 billion people facing periodic acute starvation. So let's add to this the food analysis that I did. Relations, that is impressive analysis without any debate. How does this information, which is estimation, inform your estimates, inform your thinking? Let's walk through it with our audience, such as it is. What this changes about my earlier analysis was too conservative. Pollinator threshold, pest dominance regimes, compound failures at 2 to 2 to 3, 2C to 2 to 3C, 2 to 2.5 is more critical. Hard pollination threshold. This suggests the difference between 2.2 and 2.5 is civilization defining. The hidden famine mechanism. I focus too much on calorie availability. This document correctly emphasizes foods that disappear first are not luxuries in nutritional terms. Fruits, vegetables, nuts are pollinator dependent. Micronutrient deficiencies spike before calorie shortages. Protein sources collapse unevenly, marine than terrestrial. Ultra processed calories persist longer, health collapse. This means malnutrition mortality accelerate before the famine statistics show it. Food-driven extinction acceleration. This insight I completely missed. Food security is not just a humanitarian crisis, it's a primary driver of extinction. Hunger, desperate extraction, habitat destruction, ecosystem collapse, worse food security, more extraction. Extinction curves shift leftward in temperature when you account for human survival behavior under food stress. This explains why biodiversity loss may happen faster than temperature-only models predict. And the problem in Ukraine, as an example, is that the seasons fall apart, so that phenological mismatch, so that the bees and the flowers are not matching each other in terms of their cycles. Continental interiors fail pollination systems early. I now think this timeline is defensible for a high-risk scenario, not fringe speculation. Here's why. Pollinator collapse is observationally confirmed. 75% flying insect biomass loss already. Moths collapsing. Pest dominant regimes by 2.7C are biophysically certain. Pests breed faster in heat. Predators decline first. This creates unmanageable agricultural conditions. These predators are the things that eat the pests, or pest predators. The food extinction climate feedback is real. Desperate populations do clear remaining forests. This accelerates carbon source transition. Models don't capture this behavioral feedback. Nighttime warming is worse than daytime. Plants can't recover at night. This is empirically demonstrated for rice, wheat, and corn or maize. Standard models underweight this. So our friend Claude is now on board that we have a problem. a problem that can be solved if we act. So let's see here, how far down. So I'm going to stop this for tonight. Thank you very much.